Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock and at 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock on Saturday and Wednesdays on 1410 KERI for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock. And now Clay, who's making faces at me trying to get me to laugh, we are in Albuquerque, New Mexico at 1000 KKIM. So, Clay, what do you think of last week's show? That was a great show.
Hey, all of our shows are great. What do you mean last week?
But we had former UN Ambassador John Bolton on the show. He was fantastic.
And then we had our favorite Assemblywoman, Shannon Grove.
She is great. And, between the two of them, you talk about two no-nonsense kind of people. I mean, that was a great, great interview. And we've got two no-nonsense kind of people today on the show, but before I introduce our guests, I just wanted to make a little comment. This is the 69th anniversary of the DDay invasion, and it's amazing how many people don't really recognize the sacrifices that were made on that day. I know in my life it made a difference because my dad was a Canadian soldier, and he came over shortly after that first wave, and met my mom in Holland. So 69th anniversary of a very special event. And today, we're taping on Wednesday, but today is another anniversary of a very tragic event. 45 years ago today, Robert Kennedy was assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel after he won the California primary. And that's one of those events in history that I think he would have won the nomination. I think he would have beaten Richard Nixon. You talk about changing history. That one event at the Ambassador Hotel so many years ago really, really changed, I think, American history dramatically. So who knows what would have happened had we had a Robert Kennedy administration with Vietnam wrapping up. So one of those little things in history that you wonder how things would have worked out. Anyways, our guest in the second half of the show today, Brian Johnson, the Regional Director for the National Right to Life. And our Johnson & Johnson show today, the first half, we have an old friend of the show, Doug Johnson, famous author, commentator, and talk show host. Doug, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thanks. It's always great to be back.
It was kind of funny. It just worked out that way. Today's our Johnson & Johnson show.
Well, when you've got the second most common name in the English language, it's pretty often we run into people with the same name. I can tell you story after story, and having grown up in Minnesota, the land of Scandinavians, I think we had our own phone books, so it's not uncommon to run into other Johnsons, I have to say.
I ran into something this morning when I was doing a little research for the show that I didn't realize. I knew you were one of the 50 best writers, 50 great writers you should be reading. But in 2011, I didn't realize you were the first place winner in the 50 great writers you should be reading. Yeah,
I was very blessed and fortunate to win that. I didn't expect it. It came out of left field. I didn't expect the award I won for my sales book either. I don't really seek these things out, but it's nice when somebody recognizes what you do and thinks it's worth looking at. So it's been very flattering, and I always appreciate it. I always really don't know what to say when people bring it up because it's, to me, a little awkward, but thank you for mentioning it.
Well, Doug, and it's interesting because, you and I and Clay have similar backgrounds. We're all business professionals, and, now we're all doing politics and such on the radio. So, we've gone from one direction to another. So, half of your books are management and sales, and your latest book, No Tomorrows, which was a great book that we actually gave a bunch away on a show last Christmas. But they're two totally different kinds of books, and you've gone a totally different direction here. So,
well, it's interesting. I'll just comment real quickly. I'm actually resurrecting my consulting business. I actually put it on hold for a couple of years when No Tomorrows came out because I was trying to work hard, and we poured every cent of income we had in our household back into promoting that book because we were trying to help the nation and get people to wake up and realize what's going on. But after a couple of years of no income, we got to rebuild the income stream, so we're working on that now too. And I was meeting with a client who's been a client for a long time yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing. And suddenly in the middle, we were having a cup of coffee. In the middle of a cup of coffee, he sets down his cup and he says to me, "I just got it." And I said, "What did you get?" He said, "Why politics is so important to me as a businessman." and he's never really been very involved or really paid much attention to politics. And we ended up having a great discussion, and this is an important thing. People need to realize that business is the core of America. That's what makes our economy work. That's what provides the future for our entire citizenry, and so it's important for people to be involved in politics and be aware of what's going on. And so in many ways, I think we who are business people who get involved in this stuff are seeing the bigger picture, and people need to be aware of what it can do to businesses and why we need to be paying attention.
We're having a conversation with author, commentator Doug Johnson. You know, Doug, you kind of did a good segue there for me, because a story that came out in the news this morning that, you know, a lot of people who don't follow the news aren't going to pick up on this, and I think that's part of the calculation by the Obama administration, is, and I'd like to have you and Clay both comment on this, Susan Rice got appointed today as the National Security Advisor, replacing Tom Dolan. What do you guys think of that?
Well,
who would you like to respond first? Go ahead, Clay.
Well, I'll respond first, because she's as good a liar as Obama is, and so it's only natural that she'd get appointed.
Okay, your response, Doug.
One of the things I like about Clay is he doesn't mince words. I think it's wonderful.
He's got to come out of his shell.
I'll go a step further, but I think Clay's absolutely right. I had somebody say to me this morning, send me an email, and was stunned by it and said, you know, how can somebody who's so incompetent and messed things up so badly with Benghazi get a promotion? And I wrote back and I said, because in their eyes she didn't. She is a good foot soldier. She did what she was told. She went out and promoted the message they wanted to promote, and so she's being rewarded. This is how this administration works. This is part of, and Marty, you and I talked yesterday briefly about a recent blog post or a post I did this week on the Chicago machine going to Washington.
Yes.
This is part of it. This is how they work. They reward those who do what they are told and supposed to do, and they punish those who step out of line. That's how it works. It's a reward and punishment system, and since she did what she was supposed to do, she's now being rewarded.
You know, that's brilliant. I mean, I agree with that. I also think there's another perspective here that I think by putting her in this position, she's now insulated, because now she's a member of the administration, and she can't be quizzed by the Senate about her appearance on those 5 shows, because this is not a position that needs Senate approval. It's a position that's out of that realm. So he just insulated her. She's out of the mix now, and I think it was a brilliant way to do it, because it's a minimal amount of damage, because not that many people understand what he just did.
Well, I think you're right, and it's something that is important for us to remember is even evil can have brilliance.
You bet. You bet, yeah. And, you know, something else, it's interesting. No, I've yet to hear anybody talk about this. You know, when Susan Rice went out there on those 5 talk shows that Sunday, wasn't that a job that Hillary Clinton should have done that Sunday as Secretary of State? Shouldn't she have been out there that day?
Well, she should have, but I think they were purposely insulating her. They were trying to keep the distance, and they were choosing who would be the best one to go out and bring this forth. I mean, the idea that Susan Rice, in the position she was in, would be the person was very odd, but this administration doesn't necessarily do things by the normal way of doing things. They do things in a way to promote the message they want to promote and get the results they want.
You know, Doug, I have to be very careful, because I'm not very diplomatic, and
You think?
I'm expecting another IRS audit based on some of the things I've said recently. But I think Hillary, is going to be our next president unless we have some drastic changes. And you're right; that's one of the reasons they wanted to insulate her from all of this Benghazi situation.
Yeah, it came out this past week that a deal was made back during the election, because the left realized Obama was having some problems. The campaign wasn't going quite as well as they had hoped, and word has it that they made a deal because they wanted Bill Clinton to bring in the people who support him. They wanted him to swing those people and make sure they were out there working for and supporting Obama in re-election. And word has it the deal that was made was that Obama would give support to Hillary in 2016 if Bill Clinton would give support to Obama in 2012 and speak at the convention. And Clinton lived up to his end of the bargain, and now word has it, and it's causing a real rift behind the scenes, is that Obama's trying to back out of it. And I don't think it's any surprise. I mean, you know, we know what kind of people these people are. They should know they're dealing, with backstabbers, and this is no surprise. But absolutely, I think Hillary has a very good chance of being the candidate, and I think the left is trying to decide who they want as their candidate, and they're pushing hard right now by supporting Chris Christie. The heavy Obama donors are donating Chris Christie's reelection as governor of New Jersey because they see him as another Mitt Romney whose policies are middle of the road enough that it's easy to attack. They don't want somebody who's a hardcore conservative because that's too hard to fight against. And so we're starting to see the movement towards looking to 2016 and what's happening. And so all these things are factors. And they, as far as Hillary is concerned, going back to that, they want to keep her low in the limelight at this point in time.
Okay, when we come back from the break, I want to talk to both of you about Chris Christie and the IRS. I've got a thought that you guys might be blown away with. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.